Everyone. My name is Joel Berkowitz. I'm director of the Salmon Hellenstahl Center for Jewish Studies here at UWM. And it's our great honor today to welcome Professor Ofer Ashkenazi of Hebrew University and University of Wisconsin-Madison for his talk on Navigating Profound Uncertainty, Jewish Photography in Nazi Germany. I have just a few remarks, and then I will bring my colleague Lisa Silverman up to introduce our speaker. First of all, thanks, as always, to Deputy Director of the Stahl Center, Rachel Baum, for doing a million things and definitely earning her keep today. Isabella and Acha from Classroom Services, who kept being more years than necessary taken off of Rachel's and my lifespan from the anxiety of tech issues. Anna Wilson, our office manager, Christine Greco, help with this event. Our co-sponsors, and I won't go through them all, but they're listed on our material, but thank you to all of our co-sponsors because it's a long list. And thank you to all of you in the room and online for your interest in this event. Just a couple of announcements. Those of you in the room should have feedback cards, and that is a way for us to hear what you think of this. And if you don't have one yet, Christine is circulating with them, and you can get them at some point. And we would love to hear from you. We would love to, if you're not already on our mailing list, to be in touch with you. I promise you, you're not going to hear from us like 5 times a day. You'll hear from us when events are coming up. Speaking of events coming up, this is our last event of this semester, and we have a couple of very exciting things next semester on Wednesday, February 25th at 6:30. That is in person only, so apologies to those of you from other places. But my UWM colleagues, Lisa Silverman and Alan Singer, will have a live conversation about Lisa's new book, The Post-War Anti-Semite Culture and Complicity After the Holocaust. So that's Wednesday, the 25th. February 25th at 6:30 at Boswell Book Company, our very valued program partners of many wonderful events. And Wednesday, March 18th at 7 p.m., back here in this room, live and on Zoom, Jenny Kaplan of the University of Cincinnati. We're going to go for a somewhat lighter subject. It's been kind of heavy this year. So Jenny is going to fly in from Cincinnati to give her talk, Funny You Don't Look Funny, Jews, Comedy, and Gender, and that will be our annual Faye Sigmund Woman of Valor lecture. So we're very excited for both of those. There will be time for Q&A after this session. Those of you online can leave questions there, and Rachel will be watching the Q&A or the chat. It's in the Q&A section, so feel free to drop a question at any time, and those of you in the room will have a chance to ask questions after the talk as well. And with that, it's my great pleasure to bring my friend and colleague Lisa Silverman up to introduce Professor Ashkenazi.
Thank you, Joel. So I'm delighted to introduce tonight's speaker, Professor Ofer Ashkenazi. As you heard, he holds the Ben Eliezer Chair of Modern History at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where he also directs the Richard Kovner Minerva Center for German History. And this year, we're fortunate to have him as a visiting professor at Madison, where he's teaching a range of Jewish studies courses. So the list of his publications and accomplishments is way too long for me to list here. So I just want to highlight a few that mean a lot to me, not only because they intersect with my field of study, but because they've become foundational in German Jewish history and visual culture. So the first is Weimar Film and Modern Jewish Identity, which was published with Palgrave Macmillan in 2012. And that really is the foundational go-to book for anyone interested in the topic of Jewish self-identification and German cinema in the years before 1938. And then there's his equally wonderful and innovative book, Anti-Heimat Cinema, The Invention of the German Landscape by Jewish Filmmakers, 1918 to 1968, which was published by University of Michigan Press in 2020. And this was really the first to examine Jewish self-identification and German cinema from this very wide span of time, all the way up to 1968, and is really the first study to do so. And I really admire these works a lot. So this year alone, he's published two major books on photography, the co-edited volume, Rethinking Jewish History and Memory Through Photography with SUNY Press, which has a wide range of chapters and of which I am honored to have contributed one. And as well, the co-authored book, Still Lives, Jewish Photography in Nazi Germany, with Penn Press, which is the inspiration for tonight's talk. So on a more personal note, I just want to mention that although I think we first met at an AJS like a long time ago, I don't even want to think of what year, I first had the privilege of really meeting and getting to know Professor Ashkenazi at a workshop that he organized in Jerusalem in 2017. It was a really innovative topic, German Jewish culture of place. And it was actually the first time I had been invited to a workshop in Israel. And it was really a great experience for me. And his efforts to foster international collaboration in this field have enriched us all. And so please join me in welcoming Professor Ashkenazi.
Thanks, Lisa, that was very generous. Thank you. And Joel and Rachel, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really nice to be here. Yeah, even though we talked about it, even though it's an hour and something to get here from Madison, it seems like everybody says that I did a huge leap of faith just to take this journey. But it was easy to get here, and I'm really glad that I made it. I'm also really glad because Lisa mentioned that we met many years ago. I have to say that when I started to work on this topic, the very first thing I read about it was Lisa's studies on it, and this inspires me, and I'm sure you will see a lot of these ideas coming up again in the new book and also in the talk today. So thank you very much for that. Give me a minute just to take the time. Go over it. The title of the talk today is Navigating Profound Uncertainty, Jewish Photography in Nazi Germany. Maybe the best thing to do just to start with it is to look at the picture, this one. I mean, take a look at it. This is wonderful, right? It is wonderful. You can't miss it. And it's even more wonderful when you think about it. This was taken in the summer of 1935, so 2.5 years after Hitler took power. And we see a group of Jewish friends just having fun on the beach, so carefree and so cheerful. There is no Nazism there. There's no swastika. There's no sign that Hitler has ever existed in their Germany. And it's even more astonishing when you think about it, that it was taken in the summer of 1935 in the beach resort of Norderney. It's an island just off of northern Germany, the North Sea. Norderney was famous of being anti-Semitic. It had one of the first Nazi mayors in Germany. And in the summer of 1933, so 2 years before that, the city declared of itself, Norderney ist judenfrei. So Norderney doesn't have any Jews. But still, 2.5 years later, you see this Jewish group of friends having fun on the beach in Norderney. And as I said before, they're having fun. They're totally carefree. There is a sense of normality in here, or at least a semblance of normality in here. And I think it's important to remember Yeah, I wanted to show where is Northern Nile, just a second. No. No. Okay, so that's where it is. When we, again, when we look at it, there is a semblance of normality. There is as if nothing important has happened, nothing significant has happened in the past 2.5 years. And I think it's important to say that, and it was kind of a revelation for me when I started to think about it, that life didn't stop for Jews in Germany in January 1933. A lot of things just continued. There was a semblance of normality for many Jews for a while. Many things have changed, but Jews still went on vacations, or many Jews still went on vacation twice a year, right? And many of them still could live in the same places, and many of them could think that things will change. Many things, I just overheard you when you were talking before behind me, that, many people thought that it was just a wave that will pass, right? What I want to say that it was mainly, when we talk about Nazi Germany, from the Jewish point of view, it was time of increasing uncertainty. It was not clear when things are heading. And we can see it here in the photograph in kind of a striking way. Before I move on, I just want you to look at it again and see that this idea of carefree and continuity is something that they worked really hard to make, right? This is not a snapshot. You can see that this is very well choreographed. This is staged, right? There is this movement and stillness going together. They show the bond to each other with the way, how close they are to each other and how they touch each other. They all look at us, and there are other people around that look at them. So it's a spectacle. It's something that they worked very hard to do in order to give us the impression of this carefreeness, if you will. I will go back to this photo later and tell you what I think it means. But before that, I want to mention that photographs like these, we have tens of thousands from that time. In my research that I did with a group of scholars, we looked at something like 15,000 photos, but that's just a drop in the ocean. And I'll explain later why we have so much, but I worked with brilliant scholars. You can see them here: Miron, Wobick-Segev, Rebecca Grossmann, and we did a research for almost 8 years. And one of the products were this book that tries to make sense of all of this. The book Still Lives. The best bookstores still have it, so you can run after the lecture. All right. What do I want to do today? So first of all, I want to explain why photographs matter. If you're interested at all in Jews in Nazi Germany and Jewish experience in Nazi Germany, my point will be that you have to look at photographs. But then we'll have to ask ourselves, how should we look at these photographs to learn things that we didn't know before? And eventually I will tell you one of the findings that we had about some really interesting trend of how people present their environment, display their experiences in photographs at that time. All right, so let's just dive in for why should we look at photographs at all? Or, before we do that, I did want to I want to talk today about private photographs, meaning not professional photography, not commercial photography. It's not photojournalism. This is photographs that amateur people like me and you take during that time. When we talk about private photography, we see vernacular, sometimes banal imagery, private environment, family routine, private events, and so forth. Nothing is, supposedly nothing is really important or really significant, and we'll talk about that. And some of it is what I would call absent-minded imagery. So often it will be snapshots or conventional aesthetics and themes. And we have no idea what were the intentions of the photographers. And that's really important because historians really want to know, the intentions, why people took certain photographs or wrote certain document and so forth. We don't have it here. So we'll have to find a way to go around it. All right, why is it so important? It's so important, first of all, because of the question, who would take photographs at that time? And more than the question, the answer to the question is important. Everyone would take photos because by 1925, there are some technological breakthroughs in the camera industry. We have pocket cameras. We have very small box cameras, like you see here. This would be a box camera. That would be a pocket camera. The Leica camera comes at that time, and it's cheap and it's easy to use. And the accessories are cheap and the films are cheap. And all of a sudden, everyone has cameras. So millions of families in Germany by the end of the 1920s have cameras at home, sometimes more than one. The children take photos, women, men, elderly people take photos, everyone. So this is one thing that we don't have any other sources like that. There's, even if you want to look at how people think of themselves, you look at private journals, private letters. Some people wrote journals, some people wrote letters and kept it, not as much as photographs. So this is one thing. The other thing is that for some reason, people, Jewish people, could still take photographs during the Nazi era until very late, until actually 1941. Some of them would take later, but until 1941, it was not a problem, even though the Nazis really wanted to control the way Germany is represented. And they knew that private photography is something to keep your eye on it. They still didn't stop Jews from taking photos in Germany and develop photos in Germany. And you can see here some shops that develops photos of Jews and so on and so forth. And third, people were photoliterate at that time, meaning they knew how to take a good photo. They had magazines, they had manuals, they had photo books, and like this one, this is a manual for children, how to take a good photo. So people knew how to make a good photo, how to say something in your photograph, and so on and so forth. And finally, people were well aware of the political aspects of private photography. Everybody knew about it. And you can see here how Joseph Goebbels say in November 1933, what Nazi Germany really needs is an army of amateur photographers who will go around and take photos of the real Germany, namely without the Jews, without the Democrats, and so on and so forth. That was not lost on the Jews in Germany. And you could see that Jews also would say, you know what, we also need our own army of private photographers. We also need to, to go and take photos of the real Germany, meaning the Germany in which we are part of. So I hope you are with me, and this is an important source to look, right? People, everybody takes photos, everybody knows what would be considered a good photographs, how meaning is constructed in photographs, and they know that it has some political meaning. How should we look at photographs? And here it becomes more tricky or more interesting because we don't really have, it's not like, a text that we know how to read very well. Here we need to find our own ways to find the significance of photographs. One of the things that will help us would be some recurrence signifiers. So visual signifiers that we know how to connect to the contemporary culture. For example, look at this photograph of a wedding reception at home of Ruth and Sally Stiefel from 1938. So this photograph says a lot if we only need to look at the components of it. For example, you see that the mother and father of the bride are reading from Siddur, from a prayer book, a Jewish prayer book, which is a signifier for their Jewish identity, right? We know that they are Jewish because of that. If you look at the gladiola flowers over there, that says something else. That says we are part of German middle-class culture because the German bourgeoisie is known for having this kind of flowers whenever you have a celebration like a birthday or a wedding or so forth. They have it in the photo. This is another signifier for their class identity. So we had religious identity, then we have class identity. This armoire or this very heavy wooden furniture that is a status symbol. It's hard to see, but you'll have to believe me. You have a painting on the wall, which is a total kitsch, but a very familiar kitsch in German German bourgeois family. It shows the snow-capped mountains, forest, and deer of some kind, on the background of the sky, the clear sky. This is as I said, kitsch or just a conventional photograph of the German nature, of being part of the German homeland or the German Heimat, right? So it's a German national identity, but mostly class identity, because that's what bourgeois Germans will have in their living room. And then we have photographs within the photograph of family members that perished and are not there, and you can see there the parents of the groom, and then a family member who died during the First World War. So you have this connection to previous generations. You have this long-lasting connection to the place and patriotism of the right. So we have all this here. Everything you need to know about their identity, the Jewish and German and the bourgeois identity and patriotic, and everything you need to know is over there. Ironically speaking, a few weeks after the photograph was taken, the young couple just left Germany and left everything behind. But they left us also this photograph to say, this is who we are, right? Before we left. All right. So we will look for these signifiers. We need to have a premise that before we start to look at photographs is that photographs do not have an objective significance, right? It's really important who takes the photograph and what is the significance of the photograph for the people who took it, right? Look at this photograph of March of the Hitlerjugend in the city of Bonn. It has different meaning if it's the person who took the photograph, he's a German teenager who take a picture of his friends, or a Jewish teenager who cannot be part of that. And this is the case, it's the same person who took these photos, and this is, getting ready for the bar mitzvah here, and this is him and his friends doing some forced labors in Bonn. So it has a different meaning for different people, and what we need to do is to somehow reconstruct the meaning of the photo for the people who took it, for the people who preserved it, put it in their album, made it part of their story. Now I'm going to get a little technical, but please stay with me because it will be interesting, I promise. My argument would be that every photograph also contains certain approach vis-a-vis reality. So it's not just showing us stuff, it's also saying something about what we see. In the book, we called it modes of expression. So the formal elements that determine the photograph's approach to the tensions embedded in life under Nazism. Life under Nazism are not normal, even though sometimes they look very normal. And this gap, this tension, gives a way for the photographs to say something about it. And the historians among you might find it familiar because it's pretty similar to what Hayden White is saying about how historians describe reality. Historians describe reality, it's supposedly they document what happened, right? But they document it in a certain genre, in a certain style that tells us a lot about how they understand reality. And I won't get too much into it, but just to say that the way the employment of historians, the way they talk about reality is equivalent to what the photographs are doing, the mode of expressions. I will talk today about three such modes, abstraction, pathos, and irony, that we see all over in the collection, in the database that we looked at. Let's start with the mode of abstraction. Abstractions is when we have a photograph that is totally detached from the time and place. You look at this photograph of these three cute Jewish boys. They are in Nazi Germany, but there's nothing here that tells us that they are in Nazi Germany, right? The walls are bare. They wear the same pajama. There's nothing on the floor. The beds doesn't give us. It could have been everywhere in Europe between 1920 and 1950. And that's, if you will, this kind of abstraction of the photograph gives us the impression that there's nothing too important is going on, that the reality outside we didn't get to a turning point, to a point of no return where their life has changed so much, right? And I mentioned before that it is not that simple, but let's start with that. And we see it a lot in many photos that are the same style, many times taken from below, above, so you don't see anything, you don't see any details. And you see this family, for example, the Simon family, basically went to the same places year after year on vacation, took the same photos pretty much, that you don't see that anything changed. So there is this continuity of life in Nazi Germany. Nothing has really changed. But as this photograph shows, this really, it becomes really complicated when we look at it carefully. What do I mean? First of all, if we look at this photo, if you know a little bit about German visual culture, you know that you've seen this photo before. right? This is a photo from 1935 of a group of Jewish friends just having fun hiking. But it looks like many other photos from that time or from earlier time that were taken as part of the German national youth movement of the beginning of the 20th century, the famous Wandervogel. They always look the same. They always have the guitar player, one or two guitar player, and everyone goes in two lines behind them. And there is the guy that goes in the background, and it's just the same thing, right? So this photograph that doesn't say anything about the people and the environment actually copies different photos and makes a reference to different photos. And here I'm not saying anything new. We know it from Michel de Certeau that talks about how the powerless in a society express themselves. The powerless in society express themselves with what he called tactics. They use the language of the powerful, but in a different way. They have their own meaning by misusing or appropriating the language of the powerful. And he speaks about the actual verbal language, but he talks in terms that really fit to the discussion of photographs. I would call that kind of references pathos. Now, what is pathos? And here I kind of stealing from Avi Warburg and other scholars. They're saying what is pathos is when you link something mundane, completely mundane, everyday event, everyday practice, with the most crisis-ridden experience. There are things that are about the essence of your identity, the essence of your existence. So you connect one to another. And in this case, you can see that this group of Jewish friends, all of them were taken out of school and were laid off of jobs. That's why they can just go to hike in the mountains. They are emulating the German national youth movement that thought about rejuvenating the German nation and building it with the youth and so forth. So this mundane moment of hiking in nature becomes a way to talk about their identity, national identity, the fact that they cannot be part of this movement any longer, and so forth. Let me give you some cool examples. Look at this one, for example. This is the Rosenthal family on vacation on the mountain, 1937. This looked totally mundane, right? It doesn't look like anything that is worthy of mentioning. However, I want to show you a postcard from the same time, which was very popular among tourists. And this is a classical, I talked before about the Heimat painting, the kitschy painting. This is a classical image like that. It has everything that it has to have there. It has the church in the middle with the church spire in the middle, a symbol for, tradition. You have the two slopes that kind of protect the community from the outside world. You have the forest as a symbol of rootedness, and you have the houses far and close as a symbol of being at home, feeling at home. And obviously you have the road that connects between the houses and connects the village to some other places in Germany. So you have an image of being part of Germany, being part of the German homeland. Now let's look again at that photo. You see that they have exactly the same things. You have the church spire in the middle. You have the slopes that protect it. They have the forest, the houses far and close, just like in the other photo. And here you see that the family members, the Jewish family members, they create some kind of a pyramid that ends up, or an arrow that leads to the house. So it's connection between them and the sense of being at home in Germany. And symbolically, the road from the village ends with them. So you have this symbol of, if this is the German Heimat, German homeland, this is our homeland. This is us, right? So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about pathos. Look at this one. This looks exactly the same in a way. It's from another album. It has this village in the snow, if you will, frozen in time. You have this triangle of the farmhouses leading to the manor houses, a symbol of traditional political structure. On another head of the triangle, you have the church spire. We know already what it is, and of course, at the other hand, the other head of the triangle, we have the tree and the rootedness and so forth. If you don't believe me that this is conventional, you can see that this is a postcard from this pretty much the same place, and you have the same thing: the manor house, the farmhouses, the church spire, and the tree. This is how you show Heimat, German homeland, right? And again, this is taken from a Jewish family album. This album, and they even give it like a kitschy or conventional Heimat title, a caption in the album, Landschaft im Oberschlesien, like a landscape in Oberschlesien. So it looks the same, but this is different. I'll show you why. There is a story here, and the story is that they are going on a train. It's a Jewish family going on vacation on a train, and the mother, Martha, looks at the window, look outside the window, and sees this German landscape, and it's kind of connect them together. But this is something else. First of all, if you look here, you can see that there's nothing outside of the window, right? If you, she looks at in the photograph, not in reality. We don't care about reality. We care about the photograph. In the photograph, she looks at nothing, and moreover, her eyes are closed. So this is not something she sees. This is something she imagines or dreams of. This is a daydream, if you will. I would call that an irony. This is the third mode of expression. This is irony. Why is it the irony? Because it has two ideas together on the same page that kind of contradicts one another. One is that this is our homeland, we belong in it, and the second one is, no, this is actually a vision, a dream, this is not reality. So this is what I would call visual irony. And I'll say why it is important. I want to mention first that the cool thing about these 15,000 photos that we looked at is that you can see very clear shift through the 1930s from pathos to irony. So what starts as albums that are filled with pathos end with albums that are filled with irony. And I'll try to explain why. I want to give you some example first. Remember the cute boys that we saw before, the three little boys? And I said this is abstraction, but in fact, when you look at the album, it comes with a caption, Deutschland erwache, Germany awake, right? And the caption is a very famous Nazi slogan. So we have these two layers coming together. And the irony here plays against the idea that I mentioned before. So if before the idea is that, we can overcome that, this is only a wave that goes outside, but here we don't really feel Nazism, this mocks this idea, right? This says, no, you can't really do that. Nazism is there. But it also mocks the pathos of Nazism. I mean, this pathos, it doesn't work so well when three cute Jewish boys can represent the same idea, right? So you can see that irony kind of cuts under the ideas that we see in the pathos. This one is also very cool. This is from a agricultural training camp for Zionist teenagers. And normally in those albums, you will see this will be filled with pathos. This will be about, we're going, for Hagshama, for realization of the Jewish idea. But here it comes with really silly photograph of the counselors of the group, and it comes with the caption, "Jüdisches Volk, das sind deine Führer." It's hard to see, but it's there. So this is your Führer, which was again a Nazi slogan, right? But here they kind of appropriate it, make a joke out of it, and the joke is both against the pathos of the Zionists and against the pathos of the Nazis. So they're kind of in between, trying to find their way, their story in between the big stories. And even the one that I showed you before with this great pathos, later in the album, you can see him doing very silly things like standing on his head. This guy, Karl Rosenthal, he was a school principal, a Jewish school principal in Berlin. When he goes to the mountain, he loses it. But it's interesting because this picture comes in an album page that also includes this little poem. You are old, Father William. Have you heard about it? Okay, good. Exactly, Lewis Carroll from Alice in Wonderland, right? And they brought it in English for some reason. I don't know why, but it's clear that when you have that together with this, so the whole idea of belonging into the Heimat, into German Heimat, and this is our home, becomes some kind of a fantasy, a Lewis Carroll's fantasy or nightmare, right? That's what happens to Alice. All right, I have a few more minutes. I want to show you another example of how it works, how this irony works in narratives that album do. So I want to look at this album of Marianne Carmon. She was a teenager in Berlin in 1938. She left Berlin shortly after that, but before she left, she made an album that it's all about how Berlin is her home, how much she belongs in the city. It starts with the very famous boulevard of Unter den Linden. And again, if you know some pictures from that time, she took a postcard, but it shows the one that doesn't have the swastika in it. So you see the eagles, but you don't see the swastika. And it goes from there to some great events that happen in Berlin, like the birthday, the 700 years birthday of Berlin, 1937. That was a lot of happenings there and parades and so forth. And then the Olympic Games, 1936 in Berlin, where she could somehow get some tickets, not really clear how, and see the competitions. And then it continues to some streets in Berlin and going closer and closer to her neighborhood, to some stores that she used to go to, and her streets, and even her house, the building. And then we see the building again. So it's all like kind of a story of a city going into the city and coming to the building. And then from the building, we see already some pictures within her home where she lived with her mother. And then we have the home itself. And we have, this is the dining room and the living room and the office, if you will, every room in the house. The telephone, very important, with the number, you can try it. And the most intimate place, the bathroom, right, in the house. So we have this great story of, this is my place, this is my home, right? And it could have worked very nicely, but then she has the last photo of the album is this one, which looks pretty much like this one that we saw before, but now with all the swastika flags on it. right? So we have the whole story. She builds the whole story, and then she has this picture that says, no, it's something else. And if you have the whole album, what you have again is this ironic gaze that says, the story is great, but it doesn't really work, right? Now, remember, I showed you this photo before. We saw that they really work hard to show that they don't need to work hard. However, there's something else going on here. You see that in front of them, there are two suitcases. Now, the suitcase, it makes a lot of sense, right, to be part of this scene, because that's how this is an accessory for a picnic on the beach, right? Makes sense. However, in 1930, at the end of 1935, for Jews in Germany, suitcases are a very clear symbol for something else, for forced migration. And we can see it again and again in the newspaper, Jewish newspapers at the time, where the suitcases become this symbol of where we are. We are waiting to go, right? So when they have it here, this is, again, part of the same idea of we have more than one story to tell. And, not surprisingly, all of the people you see in the picture, except for the two in the middle, have left Germany just a few months after that. All of them. So all of this image of nothing has changed and we are still here, it's part of the story, but it's not the whole story. So we have this irony. Why does it matter? As I tried to say, irony kind of goes against the big narratives. And if you look at memoirs of German Jews and interviews afterwards, you always have some really nice stories of like, we always knew that we cannot trust Hitler, we have to leave. Or we thought we are Germans and nothing will happen to us. And then it was a major shock one day, we just had to leave. We see that if we look at photos from that time, we see much more intricate stories. It's more complicated. It's not that we thought that we are so safe and nothing will happen to us and we belong here, and then happened something unthinkable. It was that, but we also knew that something is going on. Or there are some stories, the family I showed you before with the woman looking outside the train. The father wrote this great memoirs afterwards saying, we were always Zionists. We always knew that we will have to leave Germany. But most of the album that you see there is how much fun it is to live in Germany until 1936, 1937, where you start to see these images like I showed you. So photographs gives you, the moment, the state of mind in a certain moment. And state of mind in a certain moment, as you know very well from your experience, is not as neatly organized as the narratives we make of it later. And especially when you live in such conditions of increasing uncertainty, you have no idea what is going to happen. And this is exactly what we see here. So I think I will just end here. Thank you.
Don't go too far away, because I know that there are going to be lots of questions from that very stimulating lecture. Thank you so much, Ofer. Really fascinating. It's given us a lot to think about on lots of levels. And so invite questions from the room and also from online. Do you have anything to get us started, Rachel? Not yet. Okay. But Susan, we'll go to you first then.
I noticed something in this photograph almost immediately. There's a figure standing to the right in the background with his arms crossed. Do you know anything about that person or that person's relationship to the group? Because it's a completely different body image, but than everyone else.
Yeah, you have a good eye. So you can see that some people are looking at them, and some of them looking at them suspiciously, and some of them looking at them, with a smile. And you also have the kid here that did not belong and just came to be part of it. I don't know. I know that he wasn't part of the group. And when you make such a spectacle out of your presence, people look at you. But from what I know, and the person who has the photo in his album is actually this guy. And he wrote a lot about his experiences in Germany. And what he wrote about this scene is very mundane. It's like, yeah, we used to go to the beach, we had fun on the beach, and that's it. And so everything I was saying is from what I see in the picture, not what I know from him or know for sure, right?
I'd like to know more about the photograph. You said that everyone left Germany so that they all survived. And how do you know about this? Where is the photograph?
So yeah, so thank you. This photograph is one of the rare cases where we could actually find a lot of information about the people in it. Usually you don't have a lot of information. In this case, because this person, Brill, he wrote memoirs, and there was some research on the family that some people did, and we know who are the friends and where they ended up, and so all of them survived. He and his fiancée, they stayed in Germany until 1938, actually, and we have some photographs of them. After their wedding, they went to to hike in German nature, because that's what you do, and it all looks. There's no way to know that this is the end of 1938 in Germany. This is a time where it's even after Kristallnacht. It's really a terrible time, and you don't see it in their pictures. But that was the last thing they did in Germany. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember all the details. I know that they did come back to Germany after the war. So even if they came to Palestine, they went back to Germany after the war.
Thank you for your fascinating lecture. So you said that you analyzed about 1,500 photographs. So I'm curious to know, what was the process of how you chose to analyze? Did you try to get all the different regions of Germany? Did you try to get photos taken, like X% taken by older people, X% taken by younger people?
Yeah, great question. So I have to. This is really a problematic question in the process of the research. So as I said, we had a database of like 15,000 photos, and we needed to think of, okay, what do we do now? We can't write about so many photos. So what we did first, and it took us a year or two, just to figure out the major trends. So, what are the scenes that people take photos of? Where do they do it? At home, on vacation, in the street, and so on and so forth. And when you look at street photography, what can we say about it that many photos have in common? And like when I showed the different signifiers in the wedding picture, right? This is something we see in so many photos that we know how to identify it, that this is. So that's what we started to do. And in the book, because very quickly, we figured that there's nothing like that. No one has done this work before. So we figured that we actually need to do that. So in the book, we start, the first part of the book is basically going to certain scenes and say, this is how they were photographed. So you will have some kind of a baseline that if you want to do research, you can take it and see what's, what is similar or what is unique in the photos that you work with. And then we took a few examples and wrote more in-depth research on them because we found them either very representative or very exceptional. So we thought it will be interesting. So we have these examples. One of them is the Freund family with the one with the train, because their story is so crazy that it needed to be like they had the same photos. They have 3 different albums that they made in different time of their lives, or the father made, and the 3 different albums tell totally different stories with the same photos. So you can see that. One of them was, a 12-year-old girl in a Jewish boarding school, and how you can see there how she has an album, she tells a story, and then the principal of the school has the album afterwards, and he writes other captions to tell a different story with the same album. So we kind of looked at these cases just more carefully.
3 people have asked questions online, and maybe we can get to them in turn. But the first one asks, what does all of this say about today? What do we learn from all of this for Jews in the US now? So I'm sure we'll have time for all the questions, since that's a quick one.
Yeah. Hashem Yerachem, say in Hebrew. Yeah, thank you. This is, I really prefer that you will answer this question to yourself, right? Take it and think about it. That's all I can say.
Sure.
Much about photography, but would you be willing to talk a little bit about either imagination or a failure of imagination, denial, or a failure of paranoia?
During the 1930s or in the aftermath at that time? Well, I think there is this concept of failure to imagine, right, what can happen. And I think that's when you say failure, it's as if there wasn't a way to predict it. I don't think people could imagine in 1932 and 1933 what will happen in 1942. I don't think the Nazis themselves could imagine that. We obviously, as I said, Nazi Germany was a very messy place. We know that there were lots of laws and regulations against Jews that were not enforced everywhere. Some places they were enforced, some places they were not enforced. Sometimes they were changed at sometimes and then reintroduced at sometimes or canceled. Many people, I think, until 1936, 1937, it was reasonable to see that maybe there is a way out of it. Maybe there is a way for it to change for good. I don't want to judge them for the decisions they made. I just want to make it clear that was really difficult to figure out what's going on. And people had many ideas, and people sometimes their ideas were not very coherent, because this is how people think. And from these ideas, they could make a story afterwards. And with the albums, it's metaphorically very clear to see how you use what you had at the time and you organize it in a very clear narrative. But if you look back at the time, it's not very clear. That would be my point about that.
I have another question about this picture. You said that the city advertised that it was free of Jews. So what would cause this whole group of friends who used to vacation elsewhere to travel to the city to pose for this picture and presumably do other things in the city? And what, if anything, do you know about the aftermath? What occurred in the city in response to this?
Yeah, so you have to remember that there's nothing strange about them. They look just like anyone else on the beach, right? So it's not like they're coming with a, I don't know, traditional Jewish outfit and saying in your face, right, to the people. No one knows that they're Jewish, and for them, it's this is the place where we always go. We've been here since, you know, the 1920s. We came here with our parents, sometimes even before the First World War. Why should I stop? Because the people declare that it is Judenfrei. I continue to go, right? And there's always, you know, you can really see here, you know, this defiant idea that I am here and you won't tell me not to come here. But as I said, it's a very nuanced defiance because they don't tell anyone that they are Jewish. But this is part, I'll just say that, this is part of their identity. It's not like they see themselves as, I mean, the Nazis thought of them as Jewish and not German. They see themselves as German and Jewish, right?
There are two questions here about photography that I'm going to bundle together, and perhaps you can answer them together. One asks, have you done any analysis of the relationship of the content of and subject of an image to the quality and cost of the camera? And the other one says, we look at photos of the Holocaust period now for documentation of its reality, but your beginning and ending photos seem to be invested in proving that nothing terrible was going on. Was photography complicit in a special way in fostering denial?
Wow, two wonderful questions. I'm not sure we can bundle them together. Let me.
Did you see that was a little tricky? I'm very protective of the online people. I kind of cheated a little bit.
So it's the quality of the photos and the quality of the cameras and so forth make a difference. It also makes difference, you know, if some of the amateur photographers had some kind of training, and some of the amateur photographers were better photographers than others, of course. And when I write about it, when I publish about it, I sometimes, you know, sometimes I do these things that is not totally fair. I take the better photographs, right? And just because it's easier to write about them concisely in a way that if you write an article, people will read it and see exactly what you're talking about. Because in some other photos, I mean, this is very striking, but many other photos with similar ideas, I would have to unravel them a lot more in order to convince you that I have a point. So yes, so in the book we write a lot about it, but it's true that when you have to do it in short formulas, sometimes you see more of the better quality. Now the other question, so let me just answer it very briefly. I don't think they are complicit. I don't think, I mean, you are taking photos, right? Today, are you complicit with whatever is going on? We document our surrounding. We consciously or not say something when we document this surrounding. We have in our own perspective, we show it from a subjective point of view. We decide what to show. We decide what to keep and what to share with other people on the networks. And what to develop if you want to have it on your wall or whatever. These are decisions that we make that show a lot about us, who we are, what is our identity, what we think of ourselves, what we think about the environment in which we live, our belonging to this environment, many other things, many emotions, many expectations. It's all encoded in those photos that we choose to take and we choose to keep. They don't, as the photos themselves, they are sources. They're not trying to hide anything. They're trying to, if they're trying anything, they're not trying anything. But if they showing anything, it's what a certain person thought of as a good documentation of the reality she lives in. And now for us historians to, to start to think what does it mean? What looks so right for that person in this photo? But it's, I mean, it's a great question. Yeah, thanks. 996. That's when they develop it in a studio. Sometimes they mention it. We'll know where is it from, who does it belong, and
Sorry, I had a question about historical method also. You showed us kind of an ironic history of that photo album that has the ironic reveal at the very end with the Nazi flags. It seems like it's a pathos-driven history, and then it becomes an ironic history. I was wondering, in your own process as a historian, especially of this time period, if you could speak to your use of the modes of pathos, or your use of the mode of irony in your own history of this period. We saw some examples of that in these people's histories of the period, but do you use these modes in your own work?
Oh, wow, that's a nice question. I think if I understand you correctly, you ask when I write history, what kind of history I write, right? I think, this is something that you have to ask someone else who's not me. I mean, we can, after you read the book, we can talk about it, and you'll tell me. I would like to think of myself as someone who writes with this, ironic distance from reality, but I'm not sure it works all the time. I think that what historians do many times, and I try to do it as well, is to critically look at the known narrative, the familiar narratives, the established explanation, and try to see critically if they still stand with the sources that we look at now, or with the new way we look at those sources. So in this regard, this is the camp where the ironical camp of that. But if it works or not, you should tell me.
Thank you. I think that's a fitting place to end. Thank you again, Ofer Ashkenazi, for traveling east a little bit and teaching us. It's been so fascinating. Thank you for your very thoughtful questions, and have a good evening.